The movie begins with a view of New York City, focusing on the Millennium Building. Inside, two security guards use a telescope to spy on sex workers in a nearby building. They're interrupted by a call from their supervisor and head to the elevator. One guard stops for a bathroom break, while the other notices the elevator acting strangely, even crushing his flashlight. His colleague returns, and they enter the elevator together. The next morning, elevator mechanics Mark and Jeff arrive at work. Mark complains about their monotonous job, while Jeff, who helped Mark get the job, warns him not to jeopardize it. Meanwhile, in the Millennium Building, a group of pregnant women boards the elevator after an exercise class. Instead of reaching their floor, the elevator plunges downward at an alarming speed, causing them to panic and try pressing buttons, but nothing works. The building's officials quickly recognize the emergency. Despite efforts, two workers fail to pry open the elevator door, and two women go into labor. A security guard, realizing his pregnant wife is inside, frantically tries to break the door down with an axe. Suddenly, the door opens, revealing the chaotic scene inside where two women have given birth. The scene shifts to a diner where Mark and Jeff are having breakfast. Mark argues with a disrespectful man, who then punches him. Their conversation is interrupted by an urgent call about the malfunctioning elevators at the Millennium Building, prompting them to leave immediately. In a newsroom, journalist Jennifer is assigned to cover the elevator incidents quickly. She arrives at the Millennium Building just as the injured women are being loaded into ambulances, but is unable to interview them due to the medical staff's priority on care and privacy. Mark and Jeff arrive and are briefed on the incident. A staff member's remark about Jeff's former colleague irritates him. The mechanics inspect the elevator machinery for hours, but find no issues, agreeing to report that the buttons needed oiling. Elsewhere, a blind man and his guide dog leave a salon. The man, sad that it's the woman's last day, asks to see her by touching her. When his hands stray, she stops him. He then enters an elevator, but ends up on a floor under construction. Confused, he tries another elevator, unaware that it opens into an empty shaft. Despite his dog's warnings, he tragically falls into the shaft, pulling his dog with him. That evening, Mark, carrying a bouquet, visits his girlfriend's house to apologize for a previous argument. To his utter shock and heartbreak, he finds her with another man, leaving him devastated and reeling from the betrayal. Mark went into a bar with Jeff and Jeff's girlfriend. He started ranting about what happened with his girlfriend. Jeff tried to comfort him, but Mark was drinking heavily. Meanwhile, back at the Millennium Building, two security guards are notified that the elevators are malfunctioning again. They promptly head to the scene and find an elevator door erratically opening and closing. Curiosity piqued, one of the guards peers inside and is horrified to see the guide dog hanging by a rope in the shaft. As he turns to inform his partner, the elevator door abruptly slams shut on his head. Despite his partner's frantic efforts to free him, the elevator descends, resulting in the gruesome decapitation of the guard, leaving his colleague traumatized and horrified by the gruesome sight. In another part of the building, the manager, Matthew Milligan, and Lieutenant McBain are engaged in a tense discussion about the possible causes of the elevator malfunctions. Both men are visibly worried and agitated, frustrated by their inability to pinpoint the source of the problem. Milligan expresses his concern about the safety of the building's occupants, while McBain emphasizes the urgency of the situation, noting that they cannot afford any more incidents. Mark returns to the Millennium Building, visibly shaken from his earlier discovery. Jennifer, determined to get her story, discreetly follows him into the restroom. She corners him, demanding answers about the ongoing elevator malfunctions for her news article. Mark, clearly agitated, tries to dismiss her concerns, insisting that there's nothing to worry about. As she continues to press him for information, his frustration boils over, and he sarcastically retorts that elevators seem to have a deadly streak, and that perhaps 1 in 10 people who use them might meet a fatal end. Unconvinced and increasingly suspicious, Jennifer refuses to back down and trails him out of the restroom. Her persistence, however, attracts the attention of security, who quickly move in to restrain her, preventing her from following Mark further. Later, Jeff and Mark have a meeting with Matthew Milligan and Lieutenant McBain. They inquire about the results of the elevator inspection. Jeff reports that they conducted a thorough check but found no defects. Mark suggests shutting down the elevator for a few days to allow for a more detailed investigation, but Milligan rejects the idea, citing significant financial losses. Jeff agrees with Milligan, assuring everyone that the elevator is safe. The next morning, Mark is stunned to see that Jennifer has published his picture in the newspaper, along with his comments implying that elevators are dangerous. His boss, Mitchell, calls him into the office to address the remarks. Mark apologizes, explaining that he was joking and didn't expect Jennifer to take him seriously. Mitchell reveals that because of the article, the police now view Mark as a suspect. As Mark looks by the window of the office, he notices Jeff arguing with a man in a lab coat. Jeff introduces the man as Dr. Steinberg, the designer of the elevator's electronic components. During their conversation, Mark learns that Jeff's former colleague, Kowalski, had tragically set himself and his car on fire, adding another layer of mystery and tension to the already troubling situation. Meanwhile, in the Millennium Building's garage, two skateboarders sneak in for a thrill ride. During their antics, one of them collides with a parked car and falls to the floor, injured. As he sits there, dazed, the nearby elevator doors suddenly open and pull him inside. The elevator rapidly ascends to the 86th floor, where the doors open, and the skateboarder is violently thrown out, plummeting to his death. Later, Mark watches the news and is horrified to learn that the police have ruled the incident a suicide. Determined to uncover the truth, he rushes to the building, but the guards deny him entry. Among the crowd of journalists, he spots Jennifer and approaches her. She apologized for the article, explaining that she had no other story to cover at the time. Mark forgives her, but firmly requests that she avoid mentioning him in any future stories. A little girl from a daycare went out and sat in front of the elevators. One of the elevators opened, and she walked to it, but it closed, and another one opened. The doors then started opening and closing as the little girl ran to them. One of the doors opened, and she got on her knees to see what was under. The woman who is in charge of the daycare went out looking for her and heard her scream as she was talking with Milligan. They both went to the girl, but she was fine. They noticed the doll was trashed. That evening, Jennifer unexpectedly visits Mark at his home, carrying crucial evidence. She shows him CCTV footage of the skateboarder's death, pointing out the bizarre nature of the incident. She emphasizes that the elevator ascended 86 floors in less than 2 seconds, an impossible feat considering it typically takes 40 seconds to a minute. Mark is alarmed and perplexed by this revelation. They decide to share this disturbing information with Jeff, but when they approach him, he is preoccupied and drives off without giving them a chance to explain. Determined to uncover the truth, Mark and Jennifer head to a nearby restaurant to discuss the situation further. Over dinner, Mark explains the various components of the elevator system, highlighting the complexity of its design. He mentions Dr. Steinberg, the engineer responsible for the elevator's electronic components. Intrigued, they go to Jennifer's office to conduct a deeper investigation into Steinberg's background. They discover that his full name is Gunther Steinberg, and he has a controversial history. Years ago, he worked on a project involving the creation of organic computer chips using dolphin brains. The project ended disastrously, leading to his dismissal from the research team. Following this failure, Steinberg joined the elevator company, leveraging his expertise in electronic systems. Convinced that Steinberg's involvement might be linked to the mysterious deaths, Jennifer decides to delve deeper into his past and his role in the current incidents. Mark, now more concerned than ever, agrees to assist her in uncovering the truth behind the deadly elevator malfunctions. The next morning, Milligan makes a grim discovery while wandering using the elevator: Jeff's lifeless body in an elevator shaft. When Jennifer and Mark arrive as a press conference is going on, they are horrified to learn that the police have again ruled Jeff's death as a suicide. Additionally, the building executives go further, branding Jeff as a terrorist and insisting that the danger has passed. Mark, unable to believe that his friend could ever do such a thing, is determined to uncover the truth. That afternoon, he and Jennifer visit the home of Jeff. They meet his widow, who shares a chilling revelation about Jeff's colleague, Kowalski, who had died under mysterious circumstances some time ago. Contrary to official reports, Kowalski was not killed in a car accident. Jennifer and Mark, now more convinced than ever, broke into Kowalski's house. They found his widow, and she explained that he was murdered in an elevator shaft because he had discovered something he shouldn't have. According to her, his spirit now haunts the elevator, causing a string of fatal incidents. Meanwhile, Back at the Millennium Building, a group of people steps into the elevator, which soon begins to accelerate uncontrollably. Someone frantically presses the emergency button, but it fails to respond. Panic quickly spreads among the passengers, and a child soils his pants in terror. Suddenly, the floor of the elevator splits apart, causing people to plummet into the shaft below to their deaths. The elevator continues to speed up, ultimately crashing through the roof in a catastrophic explosion. In the wake of this disaster, the President of the United States declared it an act of terrorism, and a SWAT team was deployed to secure the building. Elsewhere, Mitchell confronts Dr. Steinberg, furiously blaming him for the catastrophe. Steinberg, however, dismisses the incident as a minor setback in his grand vision to revolutionize humanity. Mitchell, incredulous and desperate, demands an immediate solution, but Steinberg admits that the situation has spiraled out of his control. That evening, Jennifer arrives at the Millennium Building in a van with Mark hidden in the back. Posing as a representative from the elevator company, she tries to gain entry. The guards, suspicious, insist on inspecting the van. Jennifer reluctantly steps out to open the door. Just then, she receives a call from her colleague, who has been digging into Steinberg's background. He reveals that after being fired, Steinberg continued his work on biochips, not with dolphin brains, but with something else even more sinister. He warns Jennifer to be extremely cautious. As Jennifer absorbs this disturbing information, the guards begin their inspection of the van, and the tension mounts, knowing that Mark's discovery could endanger both their lives and their quest for the truth. While the guards are preoccupied with inspecting the van, Mark sneaks out and slips into the Millennium Building. Meanwhile, the police quickly realize that Jennifer isn't actually from the elevator company and detain her in a room. Inside the building, Mark stumbles upon a massive biochip in an elevator shaft. Resembling a giant brain, he realizes that this living organ is controlling the elevators. In an attempt to destroy it, he attacks it with a screwdriver, but narrowly escapes when a burning elevator descends toward him, killing a SWAT officer who was exiting the shaft. Seizing the fallen officer's missile launcher, Mark prepares to destroy the biochip, but Dr. Steinberg arrives and points a gun at him, determined to protect his creation. A struggle ensues, and Steinberg nearly kicks Mark into the shaft. Jennifer arrives just in time, holding Steinberg at gunpoint. The SWAT team bursts in, ordering everyone to drop their weapons. Steinberg seizes Jennifer as a hostage, but she breaks free moments later. In a dramatic turn, the biochip attacks Steinberg, pulling him inside along with Mark. Jennifer manages to pass the missile launcher to Mark just in time. With a final effort, he uses it to destroy the biochip. The explosion propels Mark out of the shaft, while Steinberg's mutilated body falls into the abyss. Several days later, the scene shifts to Mark leaving the hospital after recovering from his injuries. Jennifer arrives to pick him up, and as they leave, they find themselves trapped in an elevator. Jennifer panics, fearing the demon has returned, but Mark starts laughing, revealing it was just a prank. The movie ends on a lighter note, with Mark pulling Jennifer closer and kissing her. And with that, the movie ends. I hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for amazing videos. See you in the next one.